Back again, and this time talking about a nice, light subject.
Light.
Yeah,
Light.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a nice, easy, relaxing place to be.
Yep. This is a hot topic, if you will. Talking about the Maui Fires today. Is
Thank you, good
and scene. We're going to talk about the Maui Fires, what we believe happened, talk about the official narrative a little bit. But before we dive in that, I just want to see, what do we think? Do we think the Maui Fires were just an unfortunate tragedy, or is there more going on?
Something weird's definitely going on, because there's just a lot of weird things happening, but I don't know what to make of it. I'm not sure who's doing what to who, but there's definitely some oddities with all of this.
Yep.
So I'm just kind of interested to explore some of that. I did my usual, barely any research for this one.
Good.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's always good.
Mike doing the minimal research he has to do.
So you're not misinformed. You're just uninformed.
Exactly. I watched a few videos here and there, but not a ton.
Which one is worse, misinformed or uninformed?
Uninformed, yes.
Is worse?
Yeah, misinformed's more
No, worse.
entertaining,
I'm
though.
sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Worse is misinformed, yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
Sorry.
misinformed's more entertaining, though.
Agreed. Dave, what do you think?
I think it's something similar that happened in Paradise, California. That's why it's like the first thing that's on here on this list. I think it's a similar kind of thing. In terms of the ways in which about it, of how it happened, undetermined from me, but obviously some very powerful people trying to take some things away from,
Some sad people.
Yes.
Fair enough.
And, deceased and whatnot, so.
Brad, what do you think's going on?
Yeah, it's just a long line of intentional destruction. It goes back to Katrina, and it's all like kind of sticks out like a sore thumb as you look back on it. So,
All right. Well, Dave, you kind of opened it up a little bit. You talked about the Maui Fires feeling similar to Paradise, California. I don't think we really need to introduce what the Maui Fires are. We know exactly what's going on, right?
Yeah.
So
maybe we could introduce Paradise. I'm not familiar with the Paradise ones.
yeah, so tell us, please, because I have a totally different set of stack of papers because I'm old school here that I did my own research here. So
just
you did research.
look at this stack of papers. I came.
The
from-
CDC says you're not supposed to do your own
Somebody's
research.
gotta get the
I
facts,
know.
I guess.
Oh, these are not facts. These are.
I mean,
These are
this
just
is
pieces
just
of paper.
something, from Reddit, my favorite source.
Oh, okay.
Just bringing up just somebody from talking about Paradise, California, November 8th, 2018, leveled to ash, but most trees were still standing. Houses, steel buildings turned into ash. Cars, trucks flipped upside down.
So this is energy. This is an energy weapons
this
claim.
is this is an energy weapons claim, and I have another bulletin. Actually, I'll just go to it since we're already kind of delving into direct energy
Now,
weapons.
these are just speculation from people in those areas?
Speculation, whatnot, and other people saying that they claim that they saw something like that. I think it has more to do with the infrastructure of Maui to begin with. But I thought this was an interesting interesting video in terms of
we'll take a look.
of showing how some things were burned and other things weren't.
Oh yeah, okay.
Oh my God, that is so loud.
So
Wavelength.
All these other ones are burning.
Is this like one of those cleaners they use to like clean rust off of metal? Like one of those things, the laser cleaners, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so interesting kind of like...
So it doesn't affect anything. It doesn't affect the blue towel. What's up with the blue towel?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
just
Just
blue.
the color,
blue.
the wavelength.
Wavelength's different.
It's like Green Lantern. Can't fight against other colors.
Yeah, exactly.
Afraid of the color yellow.
So obviously they're making the claim that, all right, what if this was the same kind of thing in that sense? So Paradise, California is very strange. A lot of people were killed during that fire. Evacuation's very strange, same kind of thing.
What year was that?
2018.
2018? Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Brad, I'm sure you have some thoughts.
Oh yeah,
on that.
I mean, yeah, that one was like one of the first ones that people really started to think about directed energy weapons. I mean, the original DEW claim was actually 9/11. We didn't cover that one, but the buildings kind of just vaporized at the top, and so Paradise had a lot of damage to the building structures, but not to the bushes and trees right next to the building structures. There was a lot of footage of fires starting from below. So you saw a lot of motel signs that were burning from below, trees that were burning from inside at the bottom of the trunk. And then there was like a road, like a mountain road of cars where just a line of cars were just melted, just like we saw there in Lahaina, where it's like melted all the way through.
So was
glass,
there
everything.
Was there like a motive for Paradise, California? Like what's going on in Paradise, California that everybody wants to hit it with energy weapons? And
California had a ton of fires, starting with Paradise, right? You had the Camp Fire,
right.
and then
it's about that same time.
You had
I'm
the
just
Thomas
curious,
Fire.
Like,
you had
why Paradise? Like why hit that place with like Maui makes sense because there's a lot of valuable real estate and other money motives to get in there, but
so there's definitely it doesn't seem like there's money motives, right? But there was definitely a lot of land changeover after that. There's about 1,000 properties that are being sold at fire sale, right? I just looked that up right before that. Yeah, no, it's literally
Every fire pun is intended.
And then at the time they did a cross section of the fire map to the what is that, the lightning train or whatever, the fast train, the bullet train.
Yeah,
and so a lot of people were
like a route through where the
a lot of people were correlating it to the bullet train route.
Okay.
So
interesting.
So I think it has a lot to do. I mean, as far as my perspective, I know that the electric company or one of the energy companies, PG&E claim. I mean, I think that lends something to it in some way. I'm kind of leaning more towards that is kind of the reason of what happened in Maui, because they were switching over to become a smart city.
Smart city, but that I thought that was supposed to be like 2040 or 2045. They were planning to have a slow transition, right?
Well, they had a conference in Maui to turn it into a smart city island. Everything electric, making 15
I just didn't see here
smart.
The goal, but the goal was actually I remember seeing a video where they were saying it was pretty far out. It's not like,
but to be clear,
we gotta do it tomorrow.
But to be clear, that's pretty quick. I mean, the industrial building across the street is taking 3 years. They're still not up.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and it's harder to
that's
build
dumb.
in Hawaii too.
That's
right?
just dumb.
Also, this too is this World Economic Forum, our favorite economic forum. How to be the
Klaus
first state
Schwab
to run
is my hero. You be careful.
To run entirely on clean energy, and this is
Yeah, so I heard about this a little bit. Yeah, and supposedly, should we go over what the official narrative that we're kind of hearing on the news is? Because what I have to say next kind of relates to that.
Yeah, so let's go over the official, and then I actually have some funny comments about these in general because I was trying to research that myself. So the official narrative is, the last I looked, we don't really know.
Right.
That's it, everybody. There you go. We have no idea.
You sent something on Slack, right?
Yeah. So what I've been hearing, at least in the videos that I watched about it, was that power lines.
Allegedly, yeah. That's the most accepted one, but I haven't heard them actually officially say that's what happened. Right. It's just more of we think it's down power lines.
I shouldn't say I know. I saw some other information that showed that. There were a bunch of lawsuits against the power companies there that have been filed now.
Yep.
And that part of this making it a green island was the electric companies were focusing on building that, doing that project rather than maintaining their lines.
That's a really good map, actually.
So the lines were all weak, and when the winds came in, everything the power lines collapsed easily because they weren't being maintained.
Right. So one of the things that I went deep into just on that in general is, first off, you obviously have the right conditions. So just not speaking what you think may have actually happened or why it would happen, just condition-wise, you had winds from a hurricane to the south of Hawaii blowing, causing low pressure above Hawaii, causing dry. Yeah. So blowing. Yeah, exactly. South up, and then you've got dry conditions due to low pressure. So again, I agree with you, Brad. The way it burned is weird, but I'm just saying that's what the narrative is, right? The narrative is
500 miles away is the hurricane.
Sure. And we just got hit by Hurricane Hillary, our favorite name ever, and
it was so rough.
1L, Kevin. 1L.
I know. I kept spelling it wrong, but it was kind of.
I was spelling it wrong too.
It's 1L. Yeah, they were like, we can't. Shame. If it kills anyone, we can't, accept that Hillary killed anybody. So it's got to be 1L. Anyways, so
Hurricane Epstein's going to be way worse.
I mean, what are you talking about? A lot of people drowned.
Soon, right?
Yeah, Hurricane Epstein's going to kill itself.
That was really good.
So the narrative is south of this, you've got hurricane winds blowing across the island feasibly from south to north, right, or thereabouts, and then there's low pressure to the north of this, which causes dry conditions, and then you get the perfect situation where you get fires. That's the thought, at least. That's the idea, right? Now,
I haven't heard anybody actually say that though. But
it's been like alluded to.
I saw a few videos where they were saying like it was definitely fire conditions because it was very, very dry and then high winds.
Right.
Okay, just to be clear though, this whole area is already just built out tourist city. I mean, this is not even close to rural. It's a bunch of restaurants and ABC stores. I mean,
I've been there before, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Hawaii on the coast.
So what? I mean, all of Hawaii's on the coast. So
not
the
right
middle
here, not right here,
not the part with the directed energy weapons.
That's right.
Where they shot the laser from. That's it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's rather fascinating just in terms of how this fire just kicked up, moved across, and burnt here.
Right.
So are these claimed to be the same fire also?
I think it's all different sparks of fire because at the exact same time.
I thought there were like 4 different fires.
Yeah. There's a few here. There's also some on the Big Island at this time as well.
And my
Oahu
understanding
as well.
was that at least initially, the initial reports that I heard is like, the fire carried over from other islands, embers and whatnot, got onto those other places.
Wow.
So that's what what was coming out initially.
That's insane.
Wow. That is insane.
That was initially what was coming out.
Then we're in jeopardy of getting burned by the fire then
constantly.
too. That's the case.
Every day.
One of the articles
we get
sent also,
ember
they
over
were
here.
talking about how like having 4 wildfires all at once like this was very unusual.
Yeah, which is interesting too because Hawaii in general has fires kind of normally around this time.
They run controlled burns all the time.
Yeah, they do it all. It happens a lot, so
they don't have to worry.
Yeah, it's nothing new. However, I think this brings up an interesting point in terms of the fire hydrants not working.
Oh yeah, this was very interesting
for
too.
them at all. Gunfight without bullets. Hawaii firefighters faced down blaze with dry hydrants. So there's that, and then there's also you have the official, who says that we should revere water and not waste it.
So before we get too deep into that, I do just want to say one of the interesting things. So
we haven't really got through the initial narrative.
Yeah, so basically we're there basically. The only pieces that are left over of the narrative is there's an emergency alert system that can be used on every single island that goes off. It'll sound a massive alarm on all of these islands, and it basically is typically used to warn you of hurricanes, tsunamis, things like that. But you can set it off anytime with governor approval. They just have to basically say
give the thumbs up.
Give the thumbs up. He claims he did not send it off because he didn't want to have the islanders believe they needed to reach for high ground because he felt that
they would go towards
the fire
away from the fire.
Right.
Wait, that map. We need that map
Which
again.
that official is also now resigning.
Oh yeah. So
is he?
We're in Lahaina.
Or he may have already resigned.
We're in Lahaina.
We're in Lahaina.
He resigned due to health reasons.
You fire off those sirens.
Mic closer to you.
Oh, sorry. You fire off those sirens, and if you run towards the Mauka side, which is inland, right, which is where he was afraid they were going. Are you going away or towards the fire?
Yeah,
which way are you going?
Seems like a way to me.
Exactly. Yeah. But at the same time, too, when they do those sirens, it's a whole system that they developed and they made specifically. When the siren goes off, then there's a congruent text message that's sent out, stating this is why the siren's going off, and what you need to do.
Right. And his argument was basically he claims they were going to only use the texting and emergency. We get them here all the time. We just had an earthquake. Your phone goes off letting you know there's an earthquake. They have that emergency alert system to your phone.
Is that pre-programmed responses or something? And
you can send out custom ones too. So that's why, do you remember a few years ago there was that message that sent out, there was like an impending strike on
ballistic
Hawaii.
missile.
Yeah, somebody accidentally hit the wrong thing.
Glad you remembered that.
And told everybody.
I forgot about that. Yeah. You're saying that. Yeah.
So they have the ability. You spelled chief wrong. What are you doing, chief?
I know.
So you.
Maui chef.
I did this at 11
no, that's
p.m.
Obama's chef.
Shit. There.
So the theory or the argument he made was, I didn't want to sound the alarms off. I just wanted to use the emergency phone response. Some of the reports that I've seen, though, is a lot of people say they didn't even get the emergency reports to their phone. They started running because they went, what the hell's going on outside? They went outside, and there's a fire right there. Their phone didn't go off. Nothing warned them. Nothing. They're all of a sudden just like, I can't go that way now. Now I'm actually stuck. And that's why people are running to the ocean. Right. At least that's kind of the narrative going on.
I think there was another article. It was like a first-person article.
Yes, there is.
Where she was saying that some of the other emergency
Here it is.
I don't know what the word to use is.
Yeah.
But basically some of the emergency systems that they had in place were also not working. Like all the power for everything went out.
Yeah,
which these other systems are never supposed to go out.
I have a little bit of experience from this just from the Thomas Fire in Ventura, because I lived in an area right next to that and I actually got evacuated during that. And there's always some weird things that happen when you rely on systems that only regularly get tested like once a month maybe. So here's what we saw in the Thomas Fire, and I don't think there's any conspiracy behind the Thomas Fire. We kind of know like what happened there. It burned pretty consistent. It blazed a path directly through.
We refused to rake our forests.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we can just put Thomas Fire away. No, not at all.
Yeah. So the Thomas Fire thing, from having seen it, from having watched it, and gone back to my place after I was allowed back and seeing people lose their houses, what you saw there was same thing. Fire hydrants didn't have power because they were up on a hill. They relied on city power to pump water up the hills to the foothills that actually needed the fire control. And because the entire city had lost power by the time they started to go, oh crap, we need to start going up there was no fire hydrant pressure at all. Literally none. So all they could do was drive up with what they had in their trucks, hope that it was enough, and come back down. So, I mean, that's just incompetence on the way you set up a fire hydrant system, like to not have a backup. And then you also had a complete loss of all cell towers because it burned them all. And it was in the middle of the night that it burned them all. So you're waking up, huge fire, and your cell phone doesn't work. So you can't text out. You can't get emergency text messages because you don't have cell phones. So it's,
But how many times do we really want to be going to the pump well? Because you go back to like Katrina and it was, we had pumps, but we just didn't turn them on, or now this one it's pumps.
I think with this one too, wasn't it that they purposely turned the hydrants off?
Well,
or there was at least accusations that
allegedly they shut the city power off once this had started going because they were worried about more fires, but there was no contingency plan in place for how to continue to power the pumps.
But I thought I also heard that when it was a single fire, they almost had it completely contained. It was 100% contained, but it just wasn't out yet. And then the water got shut off on them, and then the fire spread because they had no water to finish it off.
Right, I've heard that too.
So we shouldn't also.
But that's just more rumor and speculation.
Just because there exists things like text messages or sirens or pumps or whatever, we shouldn't also just forego the basic physical fact that firemen will come up to your house out here in California, at least, and will leave a sheet of paper if you're not home, and it just says you're under voluntary evacuation.
Yeah.
And you could paper Lahaina in like 10 minutes.
It's a pretty small area.
Yeah, it's really small. Yeah. So, I mean, that just because like a text message didn't go out, that does not mean that a fire department doesn't
there are members
have
of the fire department kind of directing you where to go and.
Yeah, and usually it's on the sheet,
especially in evacuation.
This high school or whatever.
Right. So, so that is the sort of given general given narrative. Now, what gets really interesting is when you start looking into some of these reports. So we had that, I think it's on LinkedIn. You had that report of that woman saying like what really happened. So
that was nice. That was the timeline.
Yeah, that was the first person account.
That was nice.
Yeah.
So in this particular account, I haven't seen this one in general, but I imagine she says something similar. Yeah, no sirens warned us.
Yeah, she mentioned she was going out there for lunch, and then once they got there, like all the power went out, but it was like everything, and there were no emergency systems. Like every bit of power was out.
Right. Which, I mean, if the power company flips the switch hardcore, then that's not.
But she had mentioned that there were some like emergency systems that supposedly are never supposed to go out.
Right.
Backup systems
right.
that they have that never go out.
Yeah, something that was supposed to.
Yeah, if you have no power to the island and there's a tsunami coming, the last thing you want is to not be able to warn your entire island there's a tsunami coming. Like, of course, there should be 100% ways to be able to warn them. So cell phone, internet, traffic lights, GPS, and 911 emergency systems, and the power outage caused every store and shopping to immediately close. Nothing was open. And then there were 68 mile per hour winds. No evacuation sirens ever went off that day. And when the fires began, they failed as well. So you just have this weird toppling of emergency system after emergency system. What's very interesting is that GPS was down. And this is something we just talked about, Brad, and this is hilarious.
That may be the topic of another.
Yeah, so this might be a different thing. But it is very interesting because in theory, on paper, GPS should be satellite-based, and you should be able to connect to a satellite with or without power as long as the device that you're actually using has power to ping that satellite. Why would the GPS be down? That doesn't make any sense if that's how that system is supposed to work.
Topic for a different day.
That is a different day. But just
but
because
most likely
ground-based
it's
repeaters.
It's satellite to tower and then tower to phone.
I mean, allegedly.
Most likely.
Most likely. Except you can buy systems where you're able to actually ping other satellites that are foreign ones.
Right.
Like
but if you know people in the
Galileo.
military who've like fought in foreign wars, they have satellite phones.
Yep.
That direct connect.
Since we're talking about satellites, there was a report in January that there was a Chinese weather detection satellite that had been shooting green lasers out of the sky across that whole area of Lahaina.
Right.
Like a grid of lasers, almost like measuring depths
satellite
and stuff
surveyors
like that.
marks for
Yeah, right. Yeah,
what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, so she brings up the biggest thing in the historic Lahaina was that it was a large old Hawaiian community that was in the way of developers. Now it's ground zero, declared disaster area, and federal and states rules are probably going to be tossed aside. It's a toxic mess. They will undoubtedly blame it on on climate change and welcome in developers to totally bulldoze and level.
Yeah, so I do want to get to the climate change piece, but I think that's like near the end of this discussion.
That's a different topic for a different podcast.
Well, I think just this one in particular is very interesting, but 100%.
But I mean, what's interesting too, I mean, I keep bringing it up. I mean, people are putting it aside in the sense of like what's going on with this, what's happening next month in Hawaii is and I did actually read that like wildfires have been up since the 90s. Like there's twice as many or maybe 4 times as many wildfires as there were in the 90s. There was a bunch.
Very possible.
But I mean, I think that's all tied in.
But what do you link it to? Is it just more people throwing cigarette butts out like when they?
I mean,
when they say there's more power lines going down.
I think the topic of this, and then I think topic in general for wildfires in general, I think is just a discussion for conspiracy as well. Because I mean, there's instances where we haven't got any wildfires that are that crazy, and we usually get them. I mean, it's not going to be until October, November when we start to get them, but usually we still have some in the summertime, especially how dry it's been. I mean, this hurricane or tropical storm that came through obviously is going to help, wet everything, but still, it's interesting thing to think about.
Hillary coming and making everything wet.
Well, any attach
so many jokes to do from there, but
any attempt to attach to climate change for the spike in fires for the last 10 years would be debunked by climate change data, because they're calling it, for the last 8 or 9 years, they're calling it the big pause right now. So climate has not changed for 8 or 9 years.
The only thing that's changed. The only thing that's changed in terms of climate is the what color temperature they're showing on the news in terms of how hot areas are.
Are they changing the oranges to reds?
They're just changing it. They're just changing the color of it, and it's like, oh my God, it's crazy. You go back and you look, it's the same temperature. You just change the damn color. So I mean,
it's now orange, and orange is bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's
orange map bad.
Let's dig into this a little bit. So we've presented the official narrative. The problem is, number one, the official narrative isn't officially proven, so it's not really proven yet that the power lines fell.
It's not even totally official. It's just sort of like what's flying around right now.
Now, there are a lot of weird, so before we get into the conspiracy period, there's a lot of weird things that are surrounding Maui and this whole area. So one of my favorite is specifically talking about the sort of city of the future and the first energy state. So and the Hawaii Digital Government Summit. So what's really funny about this is
what does the CSUN Oviatt Library have to do with?
Funny, strange. Right?
Yeah, funny, strange. So what I think is interesting is if you were to just go to your normal Google search and you search like Maui, City of the Future, any of these things, you are just peppered with articles telling you about why it's debunked.
I thought that was a timeline for the fire.
No. Yeah, could you imagine? Why it's
end of conference.
Why do they stop for lunch?
Networking reception.
Set fire to Maui. Step 3.
It's just crossed out. No, not that. It's interesting because if you find all of these different pieces where, like news articles, official news statements will say, no, nobody said this was going to be the city of the future. Nobody wanted to build this as a real thing. None of this is actually happening. So you have to dig really, really far. Now, Dave, you already pulled this up, but I actually did go to the World Economic Forum's website, so I'm sure I'm on a list now. I'm on their good list right now. And it does say how Hawaii plans to be the first U.S. state to run entirely on clean energy, and that's what they're pushing.
But it was more specifically even like the island of Maui was going to be like the sort of the testing ground, right?
Right. So in this article, they talk about 65 renewable projects that Hawaii is working on as a state, many of which are on the Big Island, but then there's a lot of them that are on, the extra islands there, Maui being one of them. The biggest, most interesting project that I found, and I actually went to the Maui's, the Maui state or section of the Hawaii state website that showed you all the projects they were building and like approvals and all the approval processes, and you could actually read each approval process. There's a very large battery storage grid being set up in those hills kind of just above where that fire started. So at least that's what it's kind of presented as.
Maybe it's a lithium battery fire.
So here you go. One of the largest renewable energy microgrids on Maui. So I don't know if this is the exact one. This might not be exactly it, but when I actually looked at the map, I actually found this map that was interactive, and I was able to click on it. I think it's like a private contractor that bid on it. And what was really interesting is when you actually look at some of the bids, like some of the documents are like redacted and not uploaded. And I'm like, it's a proposal for a battery storage. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Anyways, you could do your own research and find that. But it's supposed to be just a big battery storage, and they were waiting for government approval to get money back. So it's weird because it's very close to where this fire started, and it's interesting that the news articles claim no, this was not actually a thing. No one was trying to make this the city of the future. Like that's false. But then you can just look up.
This place, it wasn't.
Yeah, but then you can just look up and actually see. Here you go.
All right, let's bring this. Let's compare this to where the fires were, huh?
So that's hydro. There's solar. Where's the battery? There's a battery backup.
Some more
think,
inland
right?
than that.
Yeah, they are more inland, so for sure they're more inland.
But there's definitely some overlap of the spaces.
Here we go. So yeah,
So they had the one fire that was kind of more centralized in the lower right half.
Also, as a footnote, does everyone know what the majority power generation is on Maui before this fire happened? Just so we're on the same page.
Water?
Old diesel generators.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So they burn a lot of diesel fuel to power the island. They have been trying to obviously move to more renewable options, but that is their primary energy source.
So I imagine it's not like the clean diesel
They're old. They're old generators. In fact, you can actually find some articles from a few years ago.
I was thinking if they had like the Willie Nelson biodiesel.
No, they're not using Willie Nelson's biodiesel. So what they use is they use old generators where you can actually Google it and find that only a few years ago they were talking about the fact that these old, I think they're Mitsubishi diesel generators, aren't made anymore by the manufacturer. And so finding replacement parts was going to be very hard. And that was just a couple of years ago they talked about that. So strange correlation, I suppose.
I don't know. I mean, you can obviously see, Lahaina is very similar to a couple of those places, but I don't see the correlation necessarily with all of them.
No, so when I was finding, the article I found wasn't this one. It was actually from the state of Hawaii, and it was showing that they were building.
Was it a different map than that?
Yeah, it was different. They had actually approved a large battery storage facility on the center of the island, close to where that solar is, like in between, right where it pinches off right there in Maui. Right next to that 60
pinches off.
I wonder if that's like local lore.
Man.
Yeah,
you need a pinch.
Yeah, there's a little
pinch of Maui.
Yeah, a pinch of Maui. So that one I thought was super interesting. What I also find interesting, and I mean we can get into this a little bit more, but Oprah also invested quite a lot of
680
money.
acres. Yeah.
That's
somewhere around there.
She
or
actually
was it 800 and something?
She holds over 1,000. She bought 870 more acres. This article. When does this article?
I think when I had seen was 670 to 680 in the last 3 months, like in the last few months.
Purchased.
Yeah, purchased.
Yeah, and she is not uncommon.
She's one of the largest landowners there.
Right. So, I love this. You Google it, and everything's like,
this is DuckDuckGo.
Conspiracy.
Yeah. Oprah Winfrey, roughly 1,000 acre Maui property portfolio under severe wildfire threats. Click on that. That's hilarious.
From a week ago.
So now, oh wait a minute, a week ago?
That's from a week ago.
7 days ago.
From August 16th. Oprah Winfrey's the largest landowners. Wildfire
under severe wildfire threat. So her stuff hadn't.
It's a nice spin on that, huh?
I hope she has insurance.
Well, if it's under threat, that means that none of her stuff burned. Yeah.
Right. Not yet.
Oprah Winfrey's palatial estate overlooks the Maui Fire.
Could you imagine? She's at the
Beautiful
top.
views.
Yeah, and then there was video of her like helping.
Yeah, but
helping
you know, she had a CBS news crew in tow with her that they did not want to let them into this place.
Yeah,
Right.
So she's like, all right, I guess
well,
I'm here.
you can't do charity work and not be seen doing it.
Yeah. So
What good is it if no one knows you're doing it?
Yeah.
Luckily,
I didn't
people
even
have
know the
cell
cameras were
phones.
here.
Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah. Look at her. She's in her hat. She's like, oh, I got off the plane like this.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
doesn't look like she walked out of a burning house.
definitely not. She would have run.
Man. That was a Krasenstein post.
Yeah.
The guy's
So
the biggest AstroTurf.
So the interesting thing is just the fact that she's buying it at all. We see that a lot in Hawaii, right? You saw Zuckerberg.
Well, she lives
taking
there.
over.
There's a bunch of celebrities who live all over
Yeah,
Hawaii.
like this man.
Not Clint Eastwood.
No.
Owen Wilson. He gets a pass. He can burn. He can
Wow.
set wildfire. Wow. He can
Did
set
these
wildfire.
celebrities set the fires? They all seem to actually be in places where the fires were.
Oddly close, right?
Clint Eastwood.
Did they get Zoolandered?
So it's interesting. I mean, obviously people want to live there. They want to have their big
Of course,
homes.
It's beautiful.
Sure.
There.
But having a home is one
Who
thing. Having 1,000 acres of land is very interesting. It's very
1,000
different.
acres, man.
It's a lot. That's a lot of land.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know what
huge.
she's gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with like how big just an acre of land
Yeah,
is,
right,
but like
acres huge. Man.
1,000 of those is massive.
She will never see every inch of her land. There's no way. So let's talk about what happened, conspiracy theory wise. So, Brad, do you wanna walk us through what you believe happened and what started this
We haven't
wildfire?
even got to the good part yet.
Oh, it's a good part.
Oh no, just about. Oh, I want to like touch on this. You guys aware that the guy that's heading the police, the sheriff
Mhm.
there in Las Vegas is actually the same guy that was heading up the Las Vegas Stephen Paddock. He was there at the same time. Did you guys know
Oh, the
that?
Las Vegas shooting?
He's
Pull that up.
It's the same guy.
Well, on top of it, I heard that the fire is being investigated by that guy, the police.
Yeah, it's
not the fire department.
I mean,
yeah,
why would
the
the
police chief
what's the
wants
fire
to-
department for, Brad? They look at
yeah, it's the same.
something else.
We're not
It's
detectives.
the same guy.
The fire department is to not use water. That's their purpose.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, so that's the same guy.
Pelletier will be taking a pay cut.
Yeah, but
Bummer.
same dude from Vegas. Let's see.
Police
Well,
blow.
however,
think
be
the,
moving
I think-
into a large palatial estate.
So I
And
think
so he's also not talking to people. He only wants to talk to in front of cameras and such. So people are, coming up to him. It's Jimmy Dore.
Oh, Jimmy
stuff.
Dore live. All right.
I'm like, I just want to play a little bit of this.
Okay.
So this is, what's his name?
This is the
John Pelletier?
Yeah.
Pelletier?
Peloton.
Peloton. John Peloton riding a bike.
Jalapeno.
We got the stupid music in the background. I thought it was better. I put this together at like 11 p.m. last night. Sorry. But anyway, he's not answering people's questions or anything like that. But it's very odd that he's it's the same guy. Why go from Las Vegas to Maui? I mean,
Imagine if it's just coincidence and he's like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go.
I don't
There's
think
a lot
it's
of people like him,
I don't,
believe it or not,
I
if
don't
you
think
look at it.
I don't think that's a coincidence at all, man. It's very,
there's
very.
people
I'm
that,
just saying
that
if-
survived
fishy.
3
if he-
lone gunman shootings. So
If he
I just
applied,
showed up, I'm like, wow, man, that's crazy. This
Do you-
guy got shot. Right
you imagine him applying to some, like being the chief of some tiny town in Indiana? The guy's like, fuck,
Like,
we're
no,
next.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's a rain cloud filling that guy around.
Like, what do
So-
you do? Do you deny him or do you say, let's see what happens? Approved.
and the
We could use a good real estate scam around here.
Yeah, right. But very interesting.
we're
Sorry, I
making
didn't
jokes,
mean
but
to-
that's literally like
I know, yeah.
how it works. So did we talk about the siren guy? He had to retire and go spend
Yeah.
time with his
Oh,
family.
briefly, yeah.
And
The
then
guy who was
the
supposed
fire
to
chief, I guess, he's Booktown too. I guess
Oh, has he?
that's what I heard. Yeah.
Ooh, pull that up,
Yeah.
Jamie.
Let me see if I can spell chief right. All right, there we go.
You almost did it wrong,
I know.
and you're not
Shut
tired. You have no excuse. It's
I'm dyslexic.
It's not
That's
even
my
3
other
o'clock.
excuse.
Oh, shut up. Get out of here. Dyslexic. Come on.
Fired.
Oh,
Fire chief fired.
He just,
Resigned.
like,
Resigned.
checked out something.
Resigned means he was forced to be forced to quit.
Do you think they say resign just so that you don't say
Not-
fired to a fireman? Because
Well, the person that was in charge of the sirens,
What are we talking about?
he said he was
No,
resigning
like
for
the
health
fire-
reasons, which I believe he may be correct.
Fire
He'll probably
chief.
get
he's
murdered.
going to have a
That's the
heart
guy.
attack.
That's the emergency management guy that but fire chief, something like that. He's like he looks. I think looks like he's native.
There's a few public officials that are resigning after
a few of them, right? Yeah. So we've got
Brad Ventura.
Another evil Brad.
Ventura.
Says it is difficult to
they're
describe
always the villain.
how ferocious the fire was. He says unless
it's like
you
a
were
mutant
there.
version of you and Jesse Ventura.
I got to make Brad great again.
Can we get you a hat? Oh, that's very interesting. So, let's hold on. Let's take a step back. Also, a lot of people died, so you could just be like, "Fuck this, I'm out." Like I'm not sticking around.
Or it could be that it's
that really
maybe
wouldn't
it's
make
just,
sense.
I don't know.
I mean, you would stick it out and
maybe
then
get remorseful, and you're like, okay, I just gotta. Get out of this.
You could say, I've decided to give my post up because
seems more likely
I failed
it's just
like that,
they're gonna be a sitting duck to be blamed.
Right.
So just get the hell out.
Yeah, you like hide in a hole somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so
or they're getting some money on the back end, and it's just like just resign, you'll be fine.
So there's also
and you won't ever be busted for this.
There's also lots of video. Like there's one family that basically did their whole journey where they got in their car, they got out of their house, they're driving up the highway, and then they hit this traffic, and then they realize the traffic's being stopped by the cops, and then they realize the cops are pointing them back to Front Street, and then they're in Front Street in the middle of the fire, and they have to dump into the ocean, and then they're filming themselves in the ocean. And look at
that's
Lahaina is literally it's a little horseshoe that comes off the highway. So what I don't get, why didn't anybody bust the barricade? I just don't get that. Why would you just sit there after all these fires?
They thought they were doing what they're supposed to be doing.
After all these, but they know where they're sending them. They know they send them right back to Front Street. So
it's very interesting because
unbelievable.
He's
like a legend.
Whoops, sorry.
It's a panicked situation.
Exactly.
It's an emergency. And then you look to authorities thinking that they're going to help you. So you trust what they're saying, and
we've just seen it so many times now.
It's exactly like what we watched that scene from The Dark Knight earlier, where the Joker mentions, like nobody questions anything as long as everything's going according to the plan.
Right.
Even if the plan's horrifying, they'll just follow the plan as long as there is a plan.
I mean, was there a plan? Did they think that there was a plan? Because it looked pretty chaotic. I don't think anybody.
You don't do that because you're like, oh well, they don't know what they're talking about, but let's do what they said anyways.
I think the tough thing is being in a stressful situation like that, where you're trying to flee for your life with your whole family and anything you could grab. But lizard brain is kicking in. You're just like, follow orders, get out of here.
But we're putting the words flee on something where they were literally stuck and they weren't moving.
Yeah,
for
I know, but they're still
hours.
trying to flee.
Like there's actually pictures of that car jam where they're all burnt up, those cars, and the glass is melted. Yeah. Glass melts at 2,700 degrees Fahrenheit, by the way.
Well, nobody wants to believe that the people who are, the firemen and police are trying to hurt them. They think they're doing it for a good reason.
Definitely,
they're believing in the authority of these.
There's definitely the security of authority that people would seek.
Right.
For
especially sure. in a high tension, high risk environment.
Yep.
Of course. So
it could happen to anybody.
Here's a video. This one's queued up of this guy. I guess he's a vagrant or houseless dude. So
unhoused. How dare you?
Yeah. But anyway, he talks about
and everyone loves fish, and fish loves everybody.
His name's
He's one of the wisest people that I know. He's not homeless. He's houseless by choice. By the way. Anyway.
No,
that's
unhomed.
So I went around
or unhoused.
Front Street, and there was all the cars were lined up, but none of them were moving. And I walked all the way from Safeway to the Chart House. Not one car.
Just like a real fish, he also has no teeth.
He's got one.
The traffic.
Oh yeah, he does.
And I got to the end, and I looked up north. There were no obstructions. There was no reason to keep those cars there.
Are you serious?
I'm serious as a
Are
heart
you shitting
attack.
me?
And I said, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm under orders to keep them here. And I said, the fire is right around Safeway. It's going to hit Front Street. These people got to get out of here. And he said, I'm following orders.
No way.
And so I just kept walking. Well, maybe he knows something I don't, So, and I keep walking down.
That's probably what everybody else.
So let's just go ahead and pause this real quick. So Safeway is in the south part of the horseshoe, and the Chart House is on the north part of the horseshoe, and in between is the highway. So if people are,
he said he walked that.
Right.
That
so if people are being redirected out back south from the northern part, and then from the southern part being redirected back into the loop onto Front Street, these people know what's being done. I mean, I think that they probably, I think you hear them in the cars while they're all this is going on, and that they're already suspicious of it.
Right.
It's not a big area.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and it's either.
Yeah, what's the distance like if we're talking about like so like there's Front Street, so like what's the relative distance on here? I can't.
Very walkable.
I don't think
it's very walkable.
Any distance
I mean,
markers on
parking
this.
used to be really hard, so you would park, maybe at what's that, Hulu Hattie's by the Safeway.
Would you say it's like Lahaina? Is that like 5 miles long, 2 miles long?
Yeah, maybe 2 at the most.
Okay.
If you talk to extremities of it, yeah, yeah, it's just a little.
Obviously, like I said, he walked from like basically the south end of it to the.
Think of any type of like tourist port that you have in California, and it's maybe a little bigger than that. Ports of Call, Redondo Beach. Think about all those little places.
Very walkable, pretty small.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you can't just drive in and park. So people usually end up parking on the freeway, towards the freeway, and then just walk through it all. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So actually, it's kind of interesting to think about too, because I think the last time I was there was like 2018 maybe, and had already begun the exodus. So Lahaina used to be a very lively spot, lots of culture, lots of youth, and then around 2018 when I was there, that had all been gone, had all been removed. Like they had all just basically exiled themselves out to another community called Paya.
So it became more of like a relaxed kind of town.
Or more of
older folks,
like a ghost tourist town, like lots of empty restaurants, not a lot of vibrancy. So it's almost as if they were ready to give up the ghost.
Yeah, it's old area. I mean, all of it's was state protected and just like revered and whatnot. And they're like, don't touch it. You can't do any renovations.
Well,
they're all under code and everything like that.
It is kind of like that was the Hawaiian kingdom.
Yeah.
Capital, but I've been saying prior to 2018, it was very lively. I'm telling you, the streets were crowded.
Yeah, I went in 2015. Yeah, was when I went down to Lahaina, when I went to Maui and everything. Yeah, it was packed. It was a bunch of people there.
But by 2018, that had already died out, and people had that whole foot traffic had already moved out to like Paya.
So we have all the stuff going on, all the weirdness, sending everybody back through the town, not letting people actually get out of clear open roads. Obviously, we believe that something more was going on, but there's also a bigger belief of what maybe started the fire altogether, right?
Right.
So, Brad, do you want to walk us through what this directed
energy weapons?
There we go. Yeah. So, what are we talking about here?
Right. I know there were a few viral photos that were going around, but I think most of those have been debunked as like photos from other places that weren't even Hawaii. And
like Paradise.
Doesn't mean they didn't still use direct energy weapons. I'm just saying like
when you see them,
the main photos that were kind of floating around were fakes.
Right.
Well, yeah, and they could be intentionally put out there to mislead people into thinking
that
the
photos were fakes.
Conspiracy.
I'm not saying that it didn't
right.
happen.
Yeah. So when you see directed energy weapons in test, you don't see like a laser beam. It just puts a hole through metal, and the metal catches on fire.
Yeah, I remember those sonic weapons were like that too when they were doing when they were testing those. Remember, I think we talked about it a little bit earlier.
Right. I don't remember the footage, but yeah, I know the sonic
weapons. They used
weapons,
it on like in a riot or something like that. But you don't see anything except for somebody who looks like they're being burned alive.
Right.
But like directed energy weapons, they've had for a long time. I remember the first time, I heard tell of it about 9/11. I didn't believe it, but then. Around 2016, like the first official news story broke about a naval laser based on a ship that they could use to modify weather, and they said that it was like the 3rd generation. So it's been around, and it's funny. I always thought it was kind of odd how it looks just like the lasers in the old like Toho like Godzilla movies. Remember those like little tank lasers?
It looks like a dick.
No, that's Jeff Bezos' spaceship. So they were on tanks. It looks just like that. They're just big cylinders. But there is like a documentation, like 1994.
Looks like somebody's nose, like.
Yeah.
And they talk about the properties of microwave directed energy weapons and how they can use them to vaporize, which is what a lot of people were saying about 9/11, and what you see with these houses, they just basically vaporize.
And like the melted cars.
Yeah, and it knows that you can reach melting points on the objects it can react with. So one key aspect of microwave directed energy weapons is that it needs what they call a soft target. and that means it's something susceptible to the microwave. So that's why we're seeing those like the color blue videos where you see like there's blue umbrellas that are basically untouched, or blue trash cans, or blue anything kind of plastic just basically untouched by the flames, because microwaves, just like when you use your Tupperware, you're not irradiating the plastic.
Yeah, can we pull up some of the examples of like where there's blue stuff that seems untouched? Because I saw a few, and some of them look like bad photoshops to me. But some of them
was
look
that
real.
one house that had a red roof that didn't burn.
Yeah, and that is kind of
used to be blue.
That is kind of a nuance of fires too. So just again, having been through one, you'd get a whole block, and one house would be untouched for whatever reason. That's not uncommon.
So some of the stuff that's weird too. Well, okay, the umbrellas.
That's weird for sure. 100%.
You're saying it's not necessarily weird for like one house to be good and every other house is burned around it.
But it is weird to have that flame go right all the way to Front Street. But the Front Street itself, the asphalt, which melts at 330 degrees, is fine, and even the paint lines are fine. And you can still see your way clearly driving through it all. So those different melting points are very, very odd.
Yeah, that's we kind of talked about that too. The car, like a steel's melting point is 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Most wildfires only ever get to about 1,500 degrees.
And the metal is like molten. It's like literally you can see it
like
dripping
melting
down the road, and then it's solidified.
Well, how hot does
like Terminator 2
fuel burn? You're saying like that shouldn't ever get that hot.
A wildfire
1,500. 1,500.
Yeah.
So you're talking 1,000 more degrees to melt a car.
Right. Maybe they were Chinese cars.
I don't know what
made with the same metal that was made on used on the 9/11.
Oh yeah,
World Trade Center buildings.
So steel. So the way that the directed energy weapons work, though, is that they can only punch a hole through what is in visual contact with the laser. So as it melts, it occludes the area that they want to weaken. Right? Yeah, laser. And it occludes the area they want to weaken. So then the melting actually gets in the way of punching all the way through something. So then in the paper, they find out that, well, when you're decimating a spot and it gives off some vapor, that vapor, you can actually work with that vapor to create a plasma out of it. And so then that plasma you work with, and that plasma, you can send that around the entire target. And it naturally dissipates away from the target. So effectively, you find a small point, you build a vapor off of it, and then you can build a plasma off of that, and that just basically surrounds your entire target. This is all documented 1994 PDF.
So it's almost like really basic, like when you're burning a fire, the smoke itself can get so hot that if you try to light the smoke on fire, it can help engulf the entire object. It's very much that's the kind of idea, right?
Yeah.
Like how you can light a candle by the smoke vapor, you can light the top of it.
They say something like they lengthen the wavelength and they're able to irradiate the plasma and then start spreading that plasma across the entire target.
Shaking the like if it's a microwave, right? It'd be like shaking the molecules.
Right, heating them up, creating like a hot, soupy gas.
So that comports with like a single house going down and another house not. Right, that comports with plastic not melting. Yeah.
So, why would you want to burn down Lahaina?
A lot of nice land in Hawaii. It's right on the beachfront property.
It's also like it means a lot to a lot of people. So if you're trying to traumatize people, it's like a great way to do it because everybody took their honeymoon there or whatever. And they're just setting us up for the next. Like that's what it all is. It's the Clockwork Orange is the book Anthony Burgess, right? Clockwork Orange is a little bit of red and a whole lot of yellow. So just a little bit of blood and then a whole lot of fear. And now you've basically brainwashed the entire population.
Sure. So,
and it was interesting too because as they're searching for more of the bodies, there's still like 1,000 people missing. So they're having to dig up a lot of area too.
Right.
So it's kind of it's almost like you're building the foundations for whatever's coming next on emergency money while you're looking for missing people.
Yeah, and
it's almost even more like creepy and disgusting.
And we should be clear too about what kind of a nightmare it is after a fire like this, regardless of the cause. So just what we've seen in California is some of these cities, when things like this burn, you get a huge concentration of heavy metals. If the house was really old and you had things like asbestos, or you had like, who knows, old lead pipe or anything like that, you have like just ground that is dangerous,
right?
And you have to scrape the top off. And some people just go, I'm not going to do that. I don't have the time for that. I'm not going to sit here and try to spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars just to clear the land to get it ready to build another house. Like, I'm out. I'm just going to sell to the person who's going to.
Or if they can even afford to do it. I was also reading there that a lot of the property ownership was very, the documentation was very loose.
Sure, it is loose. If your great grandma lived there, like,
but
what do you have?
This is kind of what ties all things together too. Is that you've got. Obviously property in a coastal area that could be making a lot of money. That's, maybe not as populated as it used to be. People have moved on to a different area, so now this area is not making money. You've got a lot of people that you want to get out. You burn the area down. You burn it to its foundations, and then whatever you rebuild, you've got another narrative that you could tell in the news of like, oh, we'll make sure this never happens again because we're going to rebuild it, and we're gonna finish our mission of rebuilding it with smart technology, and it'll be AI controlled, and it'll be so they get all these things that they want.
It'll be
and get rid of the undesirable people that they don't want there. And now it just becomes a giant resort area that's very safe. And we assure you that when you come back, this is going to be the safest place you've ever gone to.
Well, and let's also talk about what it looks like. Let's say they honor the fact that this family has rights to that piece of property. So now you have to get a loan, and let's say the federal government is nice enough to give you a loan. Thanks, guys. You pay a low interest rate on that federal loan.
30%.
But if you default on that loan, let's say it's even low. Let's say it's 2%. Yeah. Let's say it's 2%. You pay a 2% interest rate. But if you default on that loan, who owns your property now? Federal government. Right. They have your property now.
Which they're actually one of the largest landowners on Maui as well.
Let's go one step further. Let's say you default on your loan. The federal government now has your property. They can do whatever they want with it, and they'll either sell it off for cash or they'll hold on to it until they have a big area, and then you just turn it into a nature preserve or whatever you want to do. It's now your property, right? Even one step further than that, the problem is if you have lived in that area your entire life, the truth is, if you just visit Hawaii and you go to the nice resort areas, you think, oh my gosh, this resort is beautiful, this is nice. The truth is, a large part of Hawaii is very poor. People don't have jobs or they don't make a lot of money. So, and construction is obscene. Houses.
Yeah, it's really hard to get stuff built out
We
there.
think housing is expensive in California. In Hawaii, it's exponentially more expensive.
But it'll be interesting to also see do they loosen restrictions on that because of the rebuild effort here?
I doubt it. Because
or is that the reason that it gets done this way? Is that since it's a national emergency rebuild?
Right.
Now they can have all the construction they want without all the permitting, without all the bullshit.
Here's the thing, though. The truth is, even from what we saw in California, some of these people that wanted to rebuild their homes after wildfires found themselves constantly caught in red tape because they were constantly passing new laws.
Like individual people,
yeah. 100%,
but if
100%.
Somebody's coming back in with big resort plans or they're knocking all this out, all of a sudden the red tape starts disappearing.
Those are always up to code, Mike.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So even what we saw in California, people lost their homes. They went to go to rebuild, and they were getting stuck in the rebuild process just because they said, oh, you have to have an electric car charger in your garage. Whether you own one or not, that's a new building construction. Your garage has to be ready to accept electric chargers. So all these people went, I lost my house, you approved my permit. Now you're saying, actually, hang on a minute, you have to add this to get final inspection approved. Then they're going, okay, well, this is good now. Now you have to, because it's new construction, add solar panels or add the ability for it to take solar panels, or this box your electrical box doesn't accept solar panels. You actually have to swap that box out because it's new construction. So that's actually happening in California.
Piling things up
and
on you.
Think about what's happening in Hawaii with all these green initiatives they're passing. Now you have so many things that you have to approve. Your house can't cost you anything less than $1 million. And these people don't have $1 million. Even if you get a loan, you can't make that payment.
Right.
So we don't even have to speculate. I mean, this is really just a sped up process that we've seen play out.
We're going to, but
we've seen this process played out in the slow term in like things like New London, Connecticut, where basically the government just gave away an entire area to crime, and the police just stopped policing it, basically turning it into a no-go zone. And then as, the neighborhood fell, they called it a blighted neighborhood.
Kind of ate itself.
Right.
And then they used eminent domain to seize the neighborhood.
Yep.
And then they gave the property. They let the property be developed by a private developer.
I think there's good pictures of that where there's actually screenshots from like I don't know if it's New London, but it's something similar. There's Google Maps screenshots where you can see like, hey, this was clearly thriving. Then all of a sudden it starts to go down. Then it's overgrown, and then it's torn, and it's a hotel now. There's like tons of things you can find online where that.
Yeah, the New London one is interesting because they did use eminent domain, and so they did seize it from the residents.
That's what's going to be interesting to watch here. Is that what happens?
Right.
Well, apparently Biden's going to be overseeing it to make sure that they're going to control it and make sure for the fire victims. You know?
Just like we were going to.
FEMA chief says that.
Just like we were going to. Okay, just like we were going to control the financial crisis rescue, he was supposed to oversee that too. So the governor actually already said that they're going to be buying the land. He kind of let the, he let the quiet thought out loud.
Let them to rebuild the way they want to rebuild.
As long as you follow this detailed 28-point plan.
If by they you mean BlackRock.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I do want to point that out. I mean, this is not like a huge conspiracy per se. This is just like known fact that Vanguard and BlackRock own the world. But Hawaiian Electric, HECO, whatever, Hawaiian Electric Industries Incorporated, they are the main power supplier. They're potentially going to get blamed for this. We've seen it here in California, PG&E, SCE,
they're the ones getting sued right now.
They get hit with huge fines. They pass it on to the people, and that's why your electric bill in California is obscene, even if you barely run your air conditioning or don't run your air conditioning. So in actual ownership of stock in Hawaiian Electric, because I printed this, Vanguard and BlackRock combined own about 20%. Of the actual stock. So Vanguard Group owns 11.4% as of the time of me printing this, which was yesterday. BlackRock owns 8.43%. What I find most interesting about that is of everybody that dumped stock. So obviously when something like this happens, they go, we're going to completely lose our ass on this. They dumped 1%.
Yeah.
Nothing, basically. Just a normal trade for them. You have people jumping 3%, but then you also have these other investment groups snatching up 5 and 10% of it, knowing that it's going to go down, which I think is very interesting. It's very weird trading happening with that stock right now.
Yeah, like why not wait for it to tank and then buy it and then...
Yeah, you're buying it kind of high right now. Now, it has tanked a little bit, so it's as of me printing this, it was $13.39 a share, which is a 68% decrease in year-to-date stock price. So they have pretty much already talked. It's a good buy. I mean, depending on what happens, if they get hit with a fine, then it's going to tank even more, and they'll probably need government assistance. And now the government bails them out, and now the government owns a portion of their stock, and now you've got everything. You own the electric company, you own the land.
Yeah,
that's a win-win. So,
or just state seizure.
Or state seizure. Yeah, absolutely. If it looks like they're not going to be able to serve. That's the amazing thing about utilities. You can't have competition in utilities for like electric, water, things like that. Just in its very nature of how it works. You can't dig the street up every week for a new electric company to come in and put new power in. So you always just have one guy, and they're supposed to be regulated. So you have a dictated monopoly. And so what happens when they're going to go bankrupt? You have to make sure they're rescued because you can't stop delivering power.
Yeah.
So the federal government takes them. Exactly. Too big to fail. Exactly. That's what electric companies and utility companies are. Is they're too big to fail.
Yeah,
so if they look like they're going to go out. What's that?
We should probably hit it on the children here. The schools closed down that morning, right? They said high winds in an area that gets regular trade winds like 15 miles an hour, right? But 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, I don't generally think of. I don't know if that's common there. Is that a common practice?
I was looking to see about that, and I saw that wasn't necessarily true. They actually would start the school day. Children would be in school on the 9th, not on the 8th.
Well, what I'm saying is it normal for them, like with high-speed winds, to close the schools down?
That's the thing. That's why I don't think that.
Oh, so you don't think that there was like
I'm just wondering if that's abnormal.
I mean, maybe there was like some daycare program or something like that.
That's abnormal.
I
think that's abnormal. I mean, obviously that's something that I first heard too. It was the same kind of thing. I was like, they let the kids go home and so on.
Yeah, there's a thought that this is a lot of trauma porn too, like just to make people freak. But that is a concern out there, is that there were a lot of children stuck behind those fire lines.
Well, and that also is one of the things, right? Is that when you traumatize people, like you said, you got a drop of blood, and now you've got 1,000 drops of fear or whatever.
Yeah, yellow. Yeah.
Yeah. So the more gruesome that you make it, the more fear, the more people just kind of like, fall to the side and then say, okay, like whatever you guys need to do or however you need to handle it.
Now let's add a little QAnon.
They give up their freedom.
A little QAnon in there. There's actually a little undercurrent there that the place was cordoned off and people weren't allowed to come back in because the children were actually being snatched, which I don't actually think. We don't have any evidence of that. That's pretty wild. So there's a lot of stuff going on out there just to fill us all in.
It was a Jewish space laser.
I knew you were going to try to get it in there somehow. We talked about that. I got to say this before this is over. So all in all, a lot of weird shit going on in Maui. Clearly some fuckery happening. It seems a little weird. It doesn't jive with what you would think you would do in an emergency response. And it's going to be very interesting. But I think the best way to end this episode is with our illustrious president watching the Hawaiian president or a Hawaiian governor giving a speech about what they're going to do to try to rebuild. So this is who's in charge of our free country, everybody, right here. I just want to finish with this.
That relies on family, on ohana, whether by blood.
It's a long flight out there.
It's way past nap time.
What ohana doesn't have great grandpa falling asleep in the back?
It's like, I don't have my yogurt. I can't stay awake for this.
Oh, here's another one.
Oh, yeah. And I guess we could finish with this one, too. So this is the lovely people of Maui as the president is coming by.
Finally here.
They seem excited.
Awesome.
Look at them. They are.
Flipping them off.
Thanks for nothing. Thanks for nothing. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you.
There's one interesting thing I found about the people of Hawaii is that they're very mistrustful of the government there.
Hey, man.
Weird. How
I wonder
strange.
why.
I wonder
why.
It's like they live on an island that was taken over illegally. I think that's a good way to end it right there.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody has anything else to add, but
I just kind of want to do more at these.
Yeah,
Oh,
I would like to say, like, I don't know what happened. I don't know that there's an evil plot out there, and obviously this is a terrible tragedy. So,
of course, like regardless of what happened, people lost their lives, and that's a huge tragedy. Whatever happened, it's even more disgusting if it happened on some bigger scheme of plans and not an accident. What is going on? What is this video?
Oh no, he's pointing at the ground, saying like, "Oh, the ground."
Like, hey, did it burn here?
How hot the ground
was
is
this
while
on fire?
touring in the wildfire.
Oh boy,
This is where the Jewish space laser hit right here.
Uncle Joe. He's saying the ground is hot.
You guys catch the boots out here? That's some hot ground, man.
That's some hot ground, man. Come on. All right, you know what? I think that's a good way to Thanks for watching, everybody. Remember, I'm going to sign off the way I always do. Don't pay your taxes. That way this can't keep happening.
Yeah, like, comment, subscribe.
Just break the police barricade. And the masks are coming. Don't comply.
And don't believe anything we say. Do your own research. And, do your own research.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.